Welcome to Beyond the Surface. On our podcast, we highlight underrepresented voices in architecture. We'll humanize architects by uncovering who they are beyond the surface. Hi, I'm your host, Alex Sanchez, representing Illinois Tech's student chapter of the National Organization of Minority Architects. Today's episode is called Driven to Design with our guest, Linda Chavez. Linda Chavez is a principal at Future Firm in Chicago. She focuses on civic projects and community-driven spaces. She has completed award-winning work in Chicago at firms like Gensler and JGMA. She has been recognized at Crane's 2022 Notable Executives of Color in Construction and Commercial Real Estate. She received her bachelor's degree in architecture from Tec de Monterrey, her master's in project management from Northwestern University, and holds an honorary doctorate degree in arts from Columbia College Chicago. So why don't you tell us how you're doing today?
Yeah, good. Yes, it's been a good weekend. I think the weather has been fantastic. And it was my birthday yesterday, as I was telling you. And we had like a really nice family day yesterday, which it was really good. I needed that.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to get a break and celebrate your birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
I know we met at an architecture event, and I was speaking with you, and I wanted to know more about who you are, the type of values you have, and just more about you in general. I'm also a Hispanic woman trying to be in architecture, and I feel like it's important to have that representation and to be able to learn more about our heroes.
Thank you for that. So I grew up in Mexico, in Guadalajara. I come from I would say like it is difficult to classify it in like the social strata, but my family is like a working family. I lost my father when I was 4 years old, and I was brought up by a mother that was really hardworking mom. It was four of us. I was the youngest one. And she had a middle school education, and then she worked through the whole time as a single mom. And that was like a very strong role model for me. Like setbacks, she never complained. She was just like working and bringing us all up. My siblings, all of them ended up having like this super successful professional careers. That also was a very big role model for me. Like one of them is an artist, like an edge making artist that went into Italy and then came back to Mexico. My sister is a gynecologist, and then my brother is a civil engineer. So it was always like that type of home and environment that I was involved with. So there was always this like, as in any Latino family, big expectations about education and of how to like get into the next level. My mom and my grandmother and my great-great-grandmother, like all of them are like matriarchs, like they are always pushing for education. And if you hear their stories, they were always talking about how to educate people and bring up people and communities. So yeah, that's kind of my origins. And I always try to dedicate myself to that in a way, because I think I owe it to them for their hard work. Like it is a very interesting thing to see how privileged I am. I think I realized of that privilege a couple years ago when I was able to decide where to work. I had 5 options, and I was like, okay, I can work in any of these places, which they're not only really good places to work, but they are so outside of my culture or my community where I grew up, and I was feeling like comfortable. So then I understood that most of that privilege of that wasn't not just me and my work, but it also it was a generation that helped me, it was a generational wealth that have come through that. Even though we didn't have a lot of money, when you talk about privilege in the US, it's about also how much your parents are paying for you or how much your parents are giving you money. For me, it wasn't that. It was more about the culture and the education that brought me up where I am.
I have never heard a response like that. It sounds like you grew up around a lot of powerful women who created a powerful woman. And I like how you explain the way you see privilege, because like you said, in the US, privilege is more about parents or how fast you can get any job you want and things like that. So it's really nice to see that your definition of privilege doesn't reside in money, and it resides more in cultural and value and being able to be brought up with principles.
Yeah.
And you don't see that a lot in the US.
And that also is something that I inherit from them. I think we should talk more about family and how our family kind of bring us up. And as I am like working more and more with diverse architects or diverse professionals, I'm realizing more and more that that's the case. So the other thing that I've been thinking a lot is how grandparents. My kid doesn't have that privilege, for example, because my husband and I lost our parents. And I am trying to give my kid that. I don't know how, but I'm trying to do it through friendship, for example. She has a really good friend, and the mom is a really good friend of mine. And now I'm bringing her to like her grandparents. She's Indian, but I think the idea of that she could have that knowledge of like another person next to her, it's very important. And I think as a society, we need to value that more, like way more. And I think we are doing it. Like in architecture, we are doing the multi-generational families, like multi-generational like housing. And I think that is a reflection on that. But I think that we need to go back to that. It takes a village, you know.
It does. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And also knowing your grandparents, you know your roots, you know your history. You come from somewhere and you know where you belong.
Yeah.
And that's very important. In order to go somewhere, you have to know where you come from.
Yeah, I think that what you say is really, really important. So even though my child doesn't have those grandparents, my sister and I took a trip this year to where my mom and my dad grew up. It's a small, tiny town in Chihuahua called Camargo. And right now, I think it's 50,000 people or 60,000 people. It is a very interesting town in the north side of Mexico. And that's where my mom was born. That was where my dad was born. And not just that, like my whole family. Like you can find my great-great-great-grandfather there. And it is that even though I didn't know them, there is like, oh, we are from here. This is where we belong in a way. I was thinking when I was driving over here, is like how difficult it is to like get into a place that it is foreign to you, and how do you adapt to that? But I think it has to do a lot with how much your roots are there.
I really like the way you talk about multi-generational wealth. Knowing where you come from, all that defines your identity. And I want to take all that and talk about how did you end up in architecture?
So I grew up in a family that was very culture-based in a very strange way. It was like none of them have bachelors or any school related, but my grandmother will always read poetry to me. So I became like reading poetry in like stage when I was in middle school. My brother also had like this connection with the arts where he connected that of my father with arts, and that's how he kind of like make it happen, or like that's how he started living his life. And he brought a lot of books and art and all of that. He's like 12 years older than me, so since I was like 5 years old or 6 years old, I was like sitting with art books and paints and magazines, and all those things kind of like started like getting into my brain in a way. Then by high school, I decided that I want to be an economist or an actuarian. I really like math and doing like accounting almost. I didn't like accounting because of the money relation, but that's why I wanted to be like an economist. And it was fun for me. But then my brother sent me a letter from Germany when he was living over there, and he said like, you should pick something that is balanced between technical and arts. You have to do both, so then your life can be balanced and your life can be more than just one thing. The dean of architecture that was starting the school of architecture at my high school sent me a note and said that I look at your records and you look like you can be an architect. I was like, no, you have the wrong person here. I don't know how to draw. I don't know anything about architecture. And he's like, no. I can see your records here and where you, like your likes and your exam or whatever. So then he started talking to me about architecture. And then I went back to my brother and I went back to my friend, Francisco, who's now my husband. And we were talking about it, and Francisco looked at me and says like, yeah, you are an architect. And he was studying architect at the moment. And I'm like, you guys are crazy? I don't know. And then my two really good friends were going to apply for architecture school too. So then I'm working with them in high school, and then we have to like send our applications. In Mexico, it's easier to get into a private school than it is here, so you don't have to do as many tests or anything. So we were working with our applications. We were gonna drop and register, and the three of us walk inside, leave our applications. I was leaving, and then the woman comes out and says like, "Who's in that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, me." It's like, "You didn't fill out your bachelor's. Like, you didn't fill out what career are you choosing?" I'm like, "I didn't." And he's like, "No." So I was on the spot, and everybody's like, the woman from register and my two friends are looking at me. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do architecture, see how it goes." And then I am an architect or I wanna be an architect. I always think that I'm still not an architect, but I wanna be an architect. So, and that's kind of in my core and in my bones, yeah. So that's kind of like the long story of how I got to be an architect.
It sounds like everybody could see that you would be a great architect. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as I said, I still want to be an architect. I think architecture is a profession that is really difficult to learn and that you need a lot of work. And I don't know I don't think I can call myself an architect yet. Not for the license thing, but also for the license thing. But yeah, everybody saw that I was into that, but I didn't. And then years later, I remember when my brother took me to Germany. We were in Berlin, and I was 16 years old. I was very like, I don't know, like when you're 16, you're not paying attention to anything. You're just like going through life. And we walk into the National Gallery, and I was just in awe. I was walking into that space, and I sat there and I observed the place, and I was sitting just like all these emotions came to me. This is like when I was 16. I didn't know who had built the building. And then many years later, I'm looking through a book, and I see the picture of where I was sitting in the National Gallery, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was an architect by then. I was looking at a space. I was looking at this. That's what I was going to.
You always kind of knew you were an architect.
Yeah.
Even from the beginning, whether you mentally knew it or not.
Yeah.
It was like your path was already there.
Yeah. It was just like written over there. Yeah.
So you did go to school in Mexico. So how did you end up in Chicago?
My husband, Francisco, moved to Chicago back in 2004, 2005. And it's because the two of us wanted to see outside our city. First, we tried to go to Germany. We studied German for a couple of years, and then it got a tiny bit harder to get there. And he was born in the US. So he had like the dual citizen, and then he was able to move seamless. And he loved Chicago, of course. He's also an architect. One day he calls me and says like, oh, when are you coming? So I was coming from visit. We were still together, so I was like here every 3 or 4 months. And then one day he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna go back anytime soon. So why don't you come over? So then I moved to Chicago, and I've never left. So now it feels like home. It's been more than 15 years that we moved. And then, yeah, it definitely feels like home.
How did you feel about moving away from
home?
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard at the beginning. So my whole family, my mom and my 3 siblings are still in Mexico. I have 5 nephews and nieces, and I'm really close to them. So it was really hard not to have them close. But I think we have such a strong relationship. We call all the time, we text, we do FaceTime all the time. So it was hard in the sense of family. It was also hard in the sense of culture, in the sense of weather. But I think all those things were pieces that help to have a better life. I don't know, a better quality of life too. Now I love the fall and the transitions, and I love the city. I don't know how even to explain how it was hard, but I think it was worth it.
And now it's home.
And now it's home, yes.
And so now that you were in Chicago, how did you end up working as a designer here?
That was a hard transition. So I was very naive when I came over here. I didn't know how hard it was to be an immigrant in the US because my family never had to immigrate from country to country. I never had that experience from somebody else or that idea. So I thought it was going to be like moving from city to city. I didn't realize of how hard it was going to be. Also, I didn't know about like cultural and systemic issues in the US about race and about gender, which gender is very similar to Mexico, but I think race is completely different. So my husband and I have like all of these conversations all the time now that we have a kid. And when we try to explain to somebody that doesn't live in the US, they are like, oh, you're overreacting. Like, come on, that is not true. And I'm like, yeah, it is. So yeah, I wasn't expecting that. It took me about 2 or 3 years to get an actual position in an architectural firm. I started in a small shop, a steel fabricator shop, a Mexican guy in North Lawndale doing shop drawings. And I learned a lot about construction systems and how the construction or the architectural field work in the US. And then Joe Antunovich gave me my first chance in architecture. And I'm very grateful to him. Like, he actually took a chance on me. So after that, I worked with Joe, and then the recession came, and obviously all the firms contracted 2008, 2010, that there was no jobs for architects. So then I decided to do my master's in Northwestern, and it's like, okay, this architectural field is very hard. I'm just gonna go into project management, and hopefully I can get a profession there, or I can get a career there. And I did a year at Northwestern. I learned, again, a ton. And then when I came out, a friend introduced me to Juan Moreno. And Juan was still working at Gafari at that time. I asked for a job. I sent my resume. I did a couple of freelance works with him. And then one day he calls me. He's like, I opened my own firm. Do you want to come over? I'm like, cool, yeah. And that's how I met Juan, and that's how I started to work with Juan. And Juan is the one that introduced me to education and civic projects in the US and the importance of those projects in the city, and we'll say the city vitality. I got in love with that practice and the education, and then I was very fortunate to do the UNO, or work with Juan on the UNO school, the soccer academy, and then I actually work on the Instituto del Progreso Latino, where I met Juan Salgado, and I met Wacoda Reyes, and all these amazing role models in the Latino community that make me think that I wanted to be in that community and do things for that community. So I worked with Juan for a couple of years, and he is the other one that gave me the chance to kind of get into the field.
That's really good. Congratulations. I know that's kind of overdue, but...
No, thank you. No, it's been a long road, but it's also been a fun and interesting road. Yeah.
I'm glad that you also didn't give up. You seemed very patient. You said in the beginning that it took 3 years before you were able to work at the shop.
Yeah.
And so you pursued it and you persevered, even though it took some time.
Yeah.
And you were patient.
Yeah.
And honestly, that takes a lot of self-confidence to be able to wait. And it takes a lot of admiration for architecture, too.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Like, I really wanted to do architecture. That's what I want to do. When I was at Northwestern doing like scheduling and all these project management things, I was like, okay, this is cool, and I can learn to do it, and I became good at it. But I did miss the space and the drawing set and the line weights, believe it or not, like doing elevations and doing floor plans. Like, it is what I enjoy the most. So, yeah. And also that perseverance has to do with how you're brought up. My mom never gave up, so how I'm gonna give up? Like, that would be like so bad, you know? That is just like my judgment, not anybody else, but it was like, she did all that by herself. Like, I have all this platform that she created for me. I'm just gonna keep doing it.
And that's where we kind of go back, that powerful woman create other powerful women.
Exactly, like the powerful woman, yeah.
Can you talk about some of the challenges you've had being a Latina in architecture?
Yes. So it is hard to find them, like specifically call them out. I think you navigate with them every day of your life since you wake up until you go to bed in every aspect of your life. either being an immigrant, really thick accent, and being a woman too. And I think I just learned to navigate them and be very kind of conscious that it is not about me, but it is more about their ignorance on the knowledge of who a woman and a Latina can be or can do. So I think I sort of like play the ignorance card. Oh, you did that to me, I'm just gonna ignore it and keep going and be cool about it. Like, I'm not gonna be mad. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that has helped me to not lose my direction. Because sometimes you get mad and then you deviate. I do also make the people that I know that have some type of bias against me being a Latina or being an immigrant or a woman, I sort of like try to educate them too, or not to educate. Like, when I met somebody that has a bias, I try to be the best so then they kind of learn a different way of seeing. That is really hard because that it implies a lot of work on your side and none of theirs on their side in a way. Sometimes I get called on that by other immigrants and architects and females about like, you are being too nice and you should have like another path. But that works for me. I am not somebody that likes confrontation in any way. And when it works really well because then you have this ally that wasn't an ally before in a very strange way. And that feels also like very proud about that. You know, like, oh, I changed him. So yeah, it is hard to be a Latina woman in the US. Of course it is. Being a woman is hard in the US. It starts from the salary, you know. Like as a community, the Latino woman is the bottom of the salary chart. And I seen that because I was in a position where I was able to see salaries and I saw myself, it's like, oh yeah, I'm in the bottom of the chart. And you're always kind of fighting that. But I think it's perseverance. For me, that's kind of like the value. It's like perseverance and just like keep going. And it has been working out.
I like your response because I feel like most people in the US would see you more at a disadvantage, whereas you see it more like, I'm proud to be who I am, and I'm going to continue to be who I am because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. To be able to build that confidence, to be able to walk around when somebody says something, you ignore it and just continue walking because you, going back, you know where you come from, you know who you are, you're confident in yourself.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do a lot with our time. Now, Mexican culture has been portrayed as this amazing thing. Like, everybody wants to go to Mexico City now.
Everybody wants tacos.
Yeah, and food and things like that. There is some privilege on that at this moment of time, it seems like the Mexican culture has been more and more appreciated. Same with other cultures. So I think back in the 60s or the 70s, probably I wouldn't be able to do that. I think that we need to point out that now the Mexican culture is something that you can be proud of. And that was really hard. And I also have empathy for that because when somebody tells me it's like, oh, they did never learn to speak in Spanish, for example, it's because you have to hide it. Now I don't have to. I've been celebrated because I speak Spanish. So I think that's very important to also call that privilege. That doesn't take out that it is really still really hard to be an immigrant and a female in the US.
I love your responses, by the way.
Thank you.
So I know in the beginning you mentioned that you also had a
daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, daughter. Can you talk a little bit more how also being a mother?
Oh man, being a mom has been one of the biggest influence in my life. And being a mother of a daughter, it has influenced a lot. It has influenced the way that I see buildings now. From the smallest piece of a building, when you are designing, you know that you have to follow these accessibility rules per code. But now, as I was struggling with a stroller, then I realized how difficult it is to navigate the cities. How difficult it is for somebody on wheels to navigate them from ramps, railings, stairs, anything. When you have a toddler, she needs to grab from something. How difficult it is to come down from the train station with stroller without an elevator, or even when you don't have the stroller, how difficult it is to grab the kid. Those stairs that are like long as 3 stories or 2 stories. So that helped me a lot when I'm designing now or thinking about buildings. So it's kind of like the first and most basic one. Then it also gives me a perspective of how I want my values to be portrayed. When you have a kid, or at least when I had Lara, my kid, it was very important for me to kind of lay out the values of our family so we can raise her based on those. And again, that's privilege because you have the time to think through that versus my mom that was like, let's just do it. I had the time to think through what I want her to see, what I want her to feel, where I want her to grow up. So that was a lot of influence too. Like we have to change some things in our lives. And also helped me to build a village. So start from like, where am I working? Do I have the flexibility to work from home or to from daycare when she's sick? Do I have the flexibility of bring her to the office and to talk about her in the office? I think it is very important for moms to talk about their kids in offices. It is part of yourself. And I think that influenced me where I'm working right now. I think Future Firm has that culture. And for me, that was kind of like, I need that because I need to bring this kid with me and being able to have her around, you know? She comes to the office like so often, like she was there on Friday, and she's welcome. It is also welcome that sometimes she's sick or sometimes she has soccer practice and I can take her and I can be with her. So I think those are like the 3 big influences.
That's really good. I know, like, one thing just almost any woman going into architecture does have to think about is how they're going to balance being a possible mother in the future while also balancing their career.
Yeah.
And it feels like you've also found a way where you've accepted it as part of your identity and been able to balance it because you love it.
Well, I don't know if balance is the right word. I think, so that's something that has been on my mind in the last, I don't know, year and a half. I don't think you can call it balance ever because you're always on balance. You're always either here or there. I think it's never the perfect balance. My friend yesterday was saying something, it's like you're always sacrificing something else. And I think for me, that idea, like getting rid of the idea of balance was very important. Because when you read it in magazines or in posts or something about balance, you're like forcing yourself into that. When you realize that it's never going to happen because it's an impossible goal, then you can relax about it. Sometimes you're gonna be really good at your house and with your kid and everything is gonna be good over there, but then there is the work that has changed and then it changes and it's always like this unbalance of things almost. And I think I really like to talk about that because it is important to say that the idea of being balanced is out there so much that women want to get into that goal that they just like go to every type of things to make it happen, and it's hard and it will never happen. Or at least that's my perception. I try to be a good mom. I try to be a my career. I try to also be in the community. And the other thing that happens is that your kid is going to be only be kid for a couple of years. And when I don't know if generational, like when you were 50 or 60, you were thinking about retirement. And I don't know if that's the case anymore. So when my kid goes to college, then I can go back to my career full time too. So I don't have to feel that I'm like leaving something on the table because I'm bringing up my kid. That's my time. And then when she goes to college, then it's career. You know, like there's also times and you just have to like understand that time frame. Like, it is the time to have a kid. She's gonna go to school, and I have to do homework with her, and I have to take her to swimming lesson and soccer. So then maybe I'm not gonna work that much. And again, that's privilege. I have to say it, because I have that privilege. But yeah, it's never be balanced for me, at least. Like, I don't see it as a balance.
I like the answer. I don't know who's listening, but I feel like I need to definitely hear that.
Yeah. So yeah, like, it is hard to be a mom, especially in these times where the expectations are so high. But I think it is also a very enjoyable time. And I think we need to see it as that. It's a phase of your life where if you want to have a kid, just have a kid and be with the kid. It doesn't mean that your career is going to set back. I could never be a stay-home mom. I thought about it many, many times when I'm like really, really, really tired and disappointed of my time, like when my kid or something happens. I said, like, okay, I'm going to be a stay-home mom now because I can do it. I talked to my parents, like, yeah, we can do it. But then I was like, no, I would be like the worst mom ever if I had to stay at home. So no, I think it is better for her and for me to keep working, just do it in a different way that I was doing it before she was born. The other thing that I have to say, if any researchers out there, is that I do believe that the hardest time for a mom is not when the baby is born, or at least that's my experience too, is when the kid starts demanding from you and has words and self, like, I don't know how you say it in English, but they have, like, how do you say voluntad?
Their own will.
Yeah, their own will, yes. Like, when they have this own will of, like, I want to do that, and you're like, I have to go to work, and I'm like, okay, so we have to balance this thing between the two of us, versus when they're babies, and then you just take them to daycare, and then just like, okay. And now she looks at me, and then when I get late to pick her up or something, she will be like she's just getting like, where are you? And before that it wasn't. So I think there is something to say about that too.
In that case, after listening to the things you have said, what advice would you give to future architects coming from maybe a different country or just growing up and trying to become an architect, designer in the United States?
That's the hardest question. I think architecture to me is about process, same as life, I guess. So I think it is just to trust the process all the time. And when I say process, I think about waking up every morning and doing the work. Whatever the work it is, if you are designing, if you are researching anything, even though you feel that you are not gaining anywhere, I think doing the work and trusting the process is always like, it will take you somewhere. If you keep doing and keep working and keep moving at any pace or at the pace that you are in that moment, I think that's what it takes you to a good project and also good relationships. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the best advice. Because the other thing with process and work is that it is your own pace. It is your own thing. So that is also about your identity. You're bringing your identity into that work. And I think that have been very helpful for me to always wake up and do the work. Yeah, I think that's the advice.
I like that. Architecture is definitely a process.
Yeah.
And everybody's on their own journey. Not every process looks the same.
Correct. Yeah. That's why I think it is your own process, your own pace. But keep on doing it. Like, don't stop. Don't get scared. Or like, yes, you have to be scared. You're always, like, there's always something happening, but keep through it. I think that's kind of like also talks about hope. As you keep working, you have this hope that something is going to come through it. And that's also talking about being positive, or like, what is the hope for your future or something like that. Like, when somebody talks to me about, are you hopeful about the future? And the easy answer will be, of course not. Like, everything is burning and we're like, like, there's all these things happening. But I have a kid. Like the idea of having a kid by itself has been hopeful. It's hope about the future. And that's the other thing that my kid has taught me a lot about hope and seeing a brighter future. And I think that has to do with the work of an architect, especially of like how can you be hopeful about the future, but that is through work, through doing things that are in line with your values and keep on doing it because something will come out of it. Either an idea, a research, a building, a friendship, something, a product, a drawing.
In that case, not to make you nervous for the
No.
future, what are your future plans that you have so far?
Right now, I think I want to keep doing architecture. I want to keep on we have a lot of projects at Future Firm that are super hopeful that I want those to come to life. But also like my kid is 7, so I have to we're like pushing her through first grade, which it would be very interesting. Yeah, I think that's sort of like the short goals of the future is just that I can keep working on these amazing projects and giving something back to the community. I think one thing that I need to do next year in the next couple months is that I need to reconnect more with the Latino community. I haven't done any projects in there or having any connections there in the last couple, probably year, 2 years. So I think that's something that I need to figure out how to do more. Short-term plan.
Well, I wish you good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be supporting you for the sidelines.
Thank you.
Before we go, I do want to ask one more question that I've missed earlier.
Mhm.
Could you tell us how you ended up at Future Firm and your future plans with Future Firm?
Oh, I ended up there I met Anne and Craig at the architectural biennial 2021, I think. And then Anne's energy is like super contagious. She's like amazing. And we ended up talking a little bit there and we had dinner plans. And then, I don't know, her life, my life, and we never went to dinner. And then after my mom passing in September last year, I realized that I needed to be on another environment that support my grief. And I talked to Anne, I talked to Craig, and I was just like, we connected immediately. And I kind of accepted a job there. I started in January, and it's been super fun. I'm super happy there. I love the values of the studio, and I love the connections with the projects and the people that make these projects happen. So yeah, I am very interested to see what things come out of it. I also love the idea that it is a growing firm, and the possibilities of that growing are very, very interesting. The other thing that I love about the firm, and this is not a commercial, it is that we are talking about the processes inside the firm and how we can modify them to be better. I think that has been very important for me. And also the idea that we understand that for us to be good architects, we need to have our lives in some order.
This has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for being a guest and taking your time to come here on a Sunday when you should be resting.
No, thank you guys so much. Thank you for the questions. They're very good questions. I was talking to a mom yesterday, and I showed her the question, and she's like, "Oh, you have a lot of work to do." So thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. I think it is very important, the work that you are doing, and I'm grateful for that. Somebody has to start there at this moment. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
We appreciate you too. And the work you're doing. And continue all the work you're doing in the community, helping Chicago and just inspiring people. And I hope this episode also helps do that.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to thank everyone who is listening. We release our episodes monthly. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. I want to thank our producer, Caleb Kwok, and WIIT for making this podcast possible. Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond the Surface featuring Linda Chavez. Until next time, goodbye.